Hi, PerspectiveWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Monday, January 25th. Quite a wintry mess of snow, sleet, freezing rain, and rain headed to the Mid-Atlantic region. It looks like it'll arrive in the D.C. metro area around 4 or 5 p.m. later today. Not until later tonight in Philadelphia. Not until early tomorrow morning in the New York City metro region. There's a cold and dry air mass in place across the northeastern part of the nation, and that will inhibit the progression to the north and east of a large area of moisture. And again, it will not arrive until early tomorrow in the New York City metro region. All in all, it's a light precipitation event. However, there certainly can be some slick spots on untreated surfaces as temperatures will be near the freezing mark or even below the freezing mark in much of the Mid-Atlantic region during much of the upcoming event, and there can be some small snow accumulations as well. Let's start off by looking at the nationwide radar map, and again, a large area of moisture right across the middle of the nation all the way into the southeastern part of the nation, and a cold, dry air mass in place in the northeastern U.S. A lot of this moisture headed in that direction, but again, it'll tend to really slow down in its movement to the north and east as it encounters that dry, cold air across the Mid-Atlantic region, across the northeast U.S. Also, we'll take a look in a moment here. The upper level support kind of becomes somewhat stretched out as it arrives in the northeastern part of the nation, as this Ohio Valley system heads to the north and east, loses some upper level support, tends to weaken some, and that also will tend to reduce the total precipitation amounts. But we'll have to watch out for some slick spots over the next 24 to 36 hours or so. Well, let's get into the details of this upcoming wintry mess coming to the Mid-Atlantic region. We'll use the 6Z NAM model run. I think the NAM has had a pretty good handle on the situation. Let's start off by looking at the 500 millibar vorticity field. Again, these are areas in the upper part of the atmosphere, kind of a spin in the atmosphere that can lead to upward motion down at the ground level, and that in turn leads to low pressure development, precipitation. This is all the energy in the upper part of the atmosphere as we begin the day on Monday associated with this early week event. By the way, this is the upper level support for that late week storm system. Looks like it's headed to the Carolinas with a little impact in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. We'll talk about that in a moment here, but we'll move forward here using the NAM model run, and what happens is there kind of little bits of spokes of energy here that will push into the Mid-Atlantic region later today into early tonight. And I want to point that out because there can be what are called mesoscale bands of precipitation, small scale bands of perhaps some heavier precipitation associated with these kind of spokes of energy in the upper part of the atmosphere. And you may get into a little burst of snow, for example, later today or tonight or into the day on Tuesday in any one of the locations from D.C. to Philadelphia to New York City, with maybe a little burst of snow or a little burst of heavier sleet, even some freezing rain associated with this. So we'll have to watch for that mesoscale banding. The main wave of energy hangs out to the west, and as we go through the next 24 hours or so, notice it just tends to kind of get stretched out here all the way from the middle of the country into the Mid-Atlantic region. That will not allow it to intensify in a significant way over the next 24 to 36 hours or so. So and not only is the precipitation field, the moisture field, heading into a dry air mass, but it's the system overall will be tending to lose some upper level support, which will tend to cause basically a light precipitation event going forward. But you don't need much in the way of ice to produce some problems. Here we are now into tomorrow morning, and it's not until this time that the precipitation actually makes it all the way into the New York City metro region. Again, kind of a stretched out area of upper level energy here. And then we start looking at this next system that looked like earlier in the week and earlier last week that it could have an impact on the mid-Atlantic region. It looks like it'll generally be confined to the area from, let's say, southern Virginia down to the Carolinas in the Wednesday night, Thursday time frame. Still close enough that we'll have to monitor, but it doesn't come much farther north in the Tennessee Valley by the time we get to late Wednesday, and then it pushes instead of to the northeast, to the east, maybe even a little bit to the east-southeast. And again, the biggest impact looks like it'll be maybe southern West Virginia, southern Virginia, all the way to the Carolinas, rather than D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, Wednesday night and Thursday, something we'll keep an eye on. Then there's yet another wave already starting to show up in the western U.S. by Thursday afternoon. That could have an impact in the mid-Atlantic region with another system late in the week, and let's say Sunday, Monday time frame. Well, let's now walk through the surface forecast maps from the 6Z run of the NAM model here. Again, high pressure with a cold, dry air mass in place here across the northeastern part of the nation. Dew points are still rather low, and that dry air mass will tend to slow down the progression to the north and east. We're moving on an hourly basis, and here we go, right in the D.C. metro region. It looks like around 4 or 5 p.m. The precipitation, probably a mixed bag initially. Snow, maybe some sleet, maybe some rain initially, but because of the dryness of the environmental conditions here, temperatures may drop a few degrees at the onset of the precipitation in D.C., what we call evaporative cooling, and that could actually change the precipitation to snow shortly after it begins, and maybe even a burst or two of heavier snow across the D.C. metro region. We're talking now into the early evening hours, let's say 6, 7, 8 p.m. Again, we talked about those little spokes of energy in the upper part of the atmosphere that can cause some mesoscale banding, little bursts of heavier precipitation. Again, with the atmosphere so dry, the onset of the precipitation will likely result in a quick drop in the temperature of a few degrees. Could change the mixture initially to snow, primarily snow in the D.C. metro region. Now let's keep moving forward here and watch. It just slowly progresses to the north and east as it runs into that dry air mass, and not reaching the southeastern part of Pennsylvania until late evening, maybe even later on tonight. Southwestern Chester County may very well get in on the snow an hour, several hours earlier than Bucks County, for example, again because of that slow progression to the north and east. The initial mixed precipitation, perhaps changing to snow, will then go back to sleet and freezing rain in the D.C. metro region in the overnight hours as all this moves slowly to the north and east. Not much precipitation north of the Mason-Dixon line. Then we get into early Tuesday, and it finally pushes up to the north and east into the New York City metro region. A light precipitation event. However, there can be some slick spots because I do expect freezing rain. Now, snow can accumulate pretty much anywhere, a coating to an inch or two in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor, maybe even some locally higher amounts with those bursts of snow that potentially can occur in mesoscale bands. But for the most part, the freezing rain is probably more of a concern than snow. There will be some ice buildup in some areas, and watch out for slick spots on untreated surfaces. We go all the way into tomorrow night and early Wednesday, and the moisture finally moves into the New England area, and it tends to linger north of the Mason-Dixon line all the way into Tuesday night and even into early Wednesday morning. Then we'll just kind of push forward here, and what we're seeing down here by tomorrow night is that low pressure area that looks like it'll be basically confined to the southern part of West Virginia, southern Virginia as it heads towards the Carolinas, and for the most part it looks like it'll have little impact in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. This is the forecast map for late Wednesday night, and then early Thursday morning it intensifies as it moves off the coast. Something we'll certainly still monitor over the next couple of days. But it looks like right now that late week threat is definitely going to have bigger impact across the Carolinas and Southern Virginia as compared with the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. Well, I mentioned the concern for freezing rain in this upcoming event for the Mid-Atlantic region. There can be some minor snow accumulations, again, maybe a coating to an inch or two anywhere in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City metro region, but a layer of ice is possible as well, and that oftentimes doesn't take much to cause problems and can be more of a problem than snowfall. This is a forecast map of accumulated freezing rain from yesterday's NAM high-resolution NAM model. So I wanted to show this. This whole area right in here has accumulated freezing rain during this upcoming event, all the way from the D.C. metro region, and even some rather significant ice buildup across the higher elevations just to the west of D.C., but all the way from D.C. into the southern part of Pennsylvania. And that'll extend all the way up into upstate New Jersey and New York City metro region as well, the threat for freezing rain. So watch out for some slick spots and untreated surfaces during this upcoming event. Accumulations will be minor, but it doesn't take much ice to cause some problems. Well, one last map I'd like to show is of the western part of the U.S. It's from last night's 6Z run of the GFS. Total snowfall amounts over the next 10 days. I just wanted to point this out because it's rather amazing. The Sierra Nevada region. These are high elevation area in eastern California, the Sierra Nevada mountain range, and it's actually showing white because it ran out of colors here. But this area right in here just gets some unbelievable snowfall over the next 10 days. I don't know if you can see this. Is 152 inches over the next 10 days. That's more than 12 feet of snow in the northern part of the Sierra Nevada mountains. California gets lots of rain over the coastal sections over the next several days, maybe the next week or two, and tremendous snowfall over the higher elevations of the Sierra Nevada. Really news-making event here. In one sense, this is very good news because the snowfall in the Sierra Nevada actually provide a lot of water to California during the summer months through the melting of the snow. So a buildup of snow this time of year is a good thing. And certainly they can use the rainfall as well in the lower elevation areas. The coastal sections has been quite a dry period, but just had to show this. You don't often see more than 12 feet of snow predicted in a particular location over the next 10 days. So for the Mid-Atlantic region, a wintry mess of snow, sleet, freezing rain, and rain coming over the next 24 to 48 hours or so. Again, the arrival time in D.C., 4 or 5 p.m. later today. In Philadelphia, anywhere from later this evening, southwestern Chester County, to later on tonight, Bucks County, for example, and then not until tomorrow morning for the New York City metro region. And Philly, New York, it'll linger all day and into much of tomorrow night in the form of light snow, light freezing rain, light freezing drizzle, and some plain rain at times through the day Tuesday into Tuesday night. And the next system looks like it stays primarily to the south and east of the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. It'll be another threat late in the upcoming weekend. That's it for now. For PerspectiveWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.